Do you believe successful lives have passion and mission? Have you ever envisioned making a significant impact through your work, a contribution you deeply believe in, and you may regret for not starting it ever? If you have sensed the hidden magic power within you, longing to break free, then join me, Pranali, your host, on the Passionate Pearls podcast, where I unfold the stories of real heroes and open on how these people made crucial choices to pursue their calling. I'm sure this podcast will help you unlock your hidden magic powers and ignite the fire that's there within you to walk on a passionate journey that you always wanted to take. Are you ready to amplify your voice and grow your business or a personal brand? Imagine reaching thousands of listeners sharing your passion and making an impact all through your very own podcast. Join our upcoming workshop, Podcasting 101, designed just for you. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a seasoned professional, or just passionate about sharing your own story, we will equip you with all the tools that you need to start your podcasting journey. Don't miss out. Visit passionatepearls.com/workshops and do secure your spot today. That's passionatepearls.com/workshops. Let's make your voice heard. Today, we have a very special guest who has been working over 3 decades for empowering, educating, and protecting our most valuable asset, our child. She was always drawn to issues that surround the safety and well being of those who are not able to fend for themselves. Fueled by this passion, she created Color Me Safe organization, the firm dedicated to help children and families by providing guidance and solutions for child welfare and protection issues. While she was working as a child abuse investigator and department manager at the Department of Child Protective Services, she was one of the 3 investigators handpicked from Dallas County for a special pilot program, the Skill Response Team. She co authored Dallas County's policy and procedure handbook used by all CPS investigators today. She created a systematic method called as tips, tools, and tactics for CPS investigators. She is also a recipient of many prestigious awards by committing her life to provide a world where children have a means for safe, healthy lives to create bright futures. She's certainly making life sweeter. Let's welcome compassionate, brilliant, and diligent Gauthami Vemula on our show today. Hi, Gauthami.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Pranali, for having me as your guest today. This is exciting.
I'm excited to meet you as well. And, especially with the type of work you are doing, it's a wow. It's simply a wow for all the community and everyone who is looking forward to have such services and so much of knowledge, so much of compassion work that you're doing. You have been here in the early 70s, 80s of decade as an immigrant child, started schooling over here, being a preschooler. How it shaped you to be so different than the South Asians that have come at that point of time? Most of the South Asian kids are doctors, engineers, and researchers. And you are a researcher, but you are totally into a different fields, clinical psychology and learning about people's mind and the child protective services. So what is it about?
So, the being a South Asian, number one, I think the guidelines the minute that you're born is to become a doctor or engineer. So let me just share a little bit of my story. My intention was actually to go to medical school and follow in my father's footsteps. And my junior year in college, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to date. I wanted to have a boyfriend and everything. And, I prayed and I ended up having a boyfriend, but it went in a different direction. It turned out to be a very violent relationship for a year and a half, which almost turned to a point where he almost killed me. That's how bad it got. And, being a student, being so young, such as 21 years old, to go through something like that so early in your adulthood was very traumatic. As it is, domestic violence, dating violence is a topic and an issue that within our South Asian community is brushed under the rug because we have such a taboo and stigma attached to it. And during that time, yes, it was still very early to talk about these things and it was minimized. So I suffered silently. To the grace of God, I was able to get up, heal, with the support of my parents. And unfortunately, medical school ended up dying. That dream ended up dying. So, I pulled myself up again. I went to graduate school. I ended up earning a clinical degree, a double master's actually in clinical psychology and counseling, because my brush with the violence inspired me to move forward and channel that energy into helping other women and girls that were suffering abuse, neglect, and also, children suffering abuse and neglect. And we moved to Dallas, Texas that was 2001. Yes, and I applied to the department, which is Texas Department of Child Protective Services. I was hired in a span of 24 hours. And just like the police academy, CPS also has a very stringent, strenuous 6 long weeks of classwork and field work. And once I graduated from the academy, I was thrown into the department where we strictly worked sexual abuse cases. So I was a practicing therapist before I became a CPS investigator, and therapy and being an investigator, completely different, 2 different extremes. And what I saw as a CPS investigator is something that I will never forget in my entire life. My first case out of the academy, which still haunts me till this day, is a 3-year-old who was raped by 3 different men. So, after a month, I cried myself to sleep many days. And I thought, I cannot do such jobs, because I didn't grow up in that type of household. I came from a very loving, caring household, and I grew up trusting the entire world. So when I saw that, when I encountered this type of situations, it was very heartbreaking. But I knew in order to get justice for that child, I had to stay and protect all the other children that were going through this. So my 1 year turned into a decade. 11 years at Child Protective Services. And during that time, there were so many things that the department was doing, a lot of shortcomings and pitfalls that I was observing. I was watching, families that were immigrants being taken advantage of by the system because they didn't understand the laws here. They didn't understand how to assimilate here. They didn't know the language, and, they didn't know what their civil rights were, or they were lower on the socioeconomic ladder. And that was really heartbreaking to see. So to make a long story short, I'll fast forward to 2011. I was a department head and a quality and training manager for a very integral unit of the department, was where we trained new investigators to go out in the field and assess abuse and neglect. And they decided out of the blue to dissolve this unit. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is very integral. And what am I going to do if I don't do this? And this idea came to my mind. So my 10 years that I was there, I would get numerous phone calls, Pranali, from the South Asian community. Hey, I got your name and number from the temple, from this family, that family. We understand you work for CPS. We have our own CPS case. Could you please guide me through this? And luckily I was able to do that because they were out of my jurisdiction. So this come back to 2011. And I was thinking, what if I started up my own consulting firm that specialized in helping families navigate through the complexities of child protective services? So I got this wild idea and did a little research. I pitched it to another colleague. We did our research. We both left the agency and we gave birth to Color Me Safe.
Wow.
So we took our knowledge and experience and want to empower and educate the families here so we can be a voice for them. So that's how Color Me Safe was born. So that launched in 2013, as a matter of fact.
Awesome. But in that entire decade, you went through so much. And I mean, coming from a very functional families and watching over the dysfunctional families also exist, experiencing them and resonating was a very hard step. First of all, listening to that first case when you told me over the phone before, I was shattered for a couple of days, and I was like, this kind of things can happen. Nobody can even imagine this horrifying things can be done to them. It's such a harm. I mean, it's lifelong. You're making somebody dysfunctional, on all the lines. I mean, I just can't even take that as an example that can happen, and somebody has to investigate it, first of all.
And that's the issue that we're having, right? Within the South Asian diaspora, what I am observing, and strictly this is my opinion only, professional and personal opinion, we have become so focused on academia. I mean, it's only natural. We come to a new country, we're starting a new life. We want nothing but the best for our smart children. My parents were the same way, live the dream, the American dream, right? Academics are important, but at the same time, having open dialogue about certain social issues within the family. The world is ever evolving. And we need to understand as parents, as adults, as educators, how can we comfort our children? How can we love our children? How can we help them through the issues that they have to go through in this country? And that is very, very important.
Yeah, and the story that you mentioned, that as an immigrant, when you were growing up, you wanted to have an American dream like your other friends have, and have a boyfriend and have a relationship, which is very natural at that age to have it and go forward to it. But when certain bad things happen to you, how did you come out? Because that itself is a story for someone who is actually looking forward to it and coming out so strong, that I want to stand for those who are going through this, or who have gone through something similar to that that you have, and standing for them, giving a voice. I think that's a very different act that somebody can take. Most of them we have seen have been shattered, collapsed, and completely lost themselves. So what is that that fueled you and made it more better and stronger?
Sure. Number one, God's grace. God's grace, faith and devotion, all this helps. But I think part of it, we as women, we don't realize that each of us possesses an inner strength in all of us. And I think whenever something, adversity that we have to face, we need to take that inner strength and channel it for the grace of good. Sure, we have options. I can sit in the corner and be upset for the rest of my life and traumatized with the rest of my life and close off my heart. But at the same time, you have to put that behind you, and you have to learn to just forgive yourself and get up and move forward and take whatever, channel all that energy into something else for the greater good. So take your situation and see how you can help others with it, right? So they don't have to go through what you've gone through.
I know, but what really made you stand with that? How did you convince your parents later that, this is what I want to do it further, because it is going to give a more meaning to my life, to someone else's life? Coming with so many the values that needs to be broken and moving on is also a challenge. And then feeling that you are accepted by your friends, your society, because when things go wrong, we absolutely feel that we have been neglected a lot, we will never be accepted, and all that. You need some good system. And how did you make sure that you are into that system?
Sure. Trust me, I lost the trust of my parents for a very long time because I covered up with what I was going through. I'll be very honest, my father didn't talk to me for a month or two because there was a point where he felt empty, like, why couldn't I protect you? Right. And I think after going through what I went through, it took a lot of courage from them. It took a lot of open conversations. It took a lot of family support, specifically my sisters, and just talking to them and knowing that there is an outlet. And it took a long time, Pranali, but eventually it got there. It came to a point where there was a level of admiration from my parents to me that she went through all of this and yet she prevailed. And I think at that point, I didn't know who to turn to. I was young. This was the late 90s that I was in school. And knowing that now there are so many resources out there, there are so many people that you can speak with, there's helplines, there's therapists. So when you are going through something, we know that there is help. And at that time, I didn't know any of this. I was so just clouded with everything that was going on. I didn't know who to turn to, but know that there is help out there for individuals that are going through such trauma.
You mentioned about the helplines, you mentioned about the counseling, but this is still not something that people think that those are the channels for them. They think that it is for people who are either mentally ill or there is something that has happened. So this channel particularly is very under the roof for many of us who are even thinking that this channel probably is not working out, or it's not a channel. First of all, that is to going to the mental gym, having someone talking through all of this and giving you the neutral opinions is not a norm, especially in the South Asian communities. And you must have been got a lot of experiences with it. I know personally many people whom I think if they get this kind of psychological help, they can rest well in their life. And
Right.
but then there is still about a big taboo about it. What you will advise for such kind of things and make people open to this kind of services?
I think with topics, with issues such as this, it's going to take a little while. I feel like in the last 15 years, it's gained a lot of momentum. People are giving it a voice. We're amplifying such issues and we're opening up a little bit more. So that gives us a little bit more courage. And I think for Indians that are newly coming here, when we ask for our citizenship, we apply for our citizenship and everything, and we try to learn the history here. But I feel like during that time when we're applying, I think it's really good information to give out for individuals just to educate them. Hey, if you're going through something like this, there are channels, there are resources out there. All of this information should be applied. It's not just coming to America and living the American dream. You also need to know who to turn to when such incidents or when you go through such situations. So if there is somebody that's going through this, I encourage them to open up, speak to somebody, call a few places. There are thousands and thousands of resources out there where someone can get help, specifically if you are of South Asian descent.
Coming back to that, I just realized there is always a question, especially when somebody is pregnant, or a women go to doctors and they check their health and they try to ask, how are you feeling at home? Is this pregnancy that is enforced to you? It is by your wish? How are you treated at family level and things like that? And for us who are independent, for them to come up with the real facts is very easy. But there are many dependents as an immigrant that come, especially wives, they come as independent visa, and if something is not going in a right human factor way to them, still they're not ready to expose, still they're not ready to talk it out, although the channels are coming to them and are ready to give them a help, just because they think that if they do that, they may lose the status, they may lose their husbands, and there's so much of efforts that their families have put in to be here and live this American dream. So there are a lot of conflicts that they go through, and they ended up being
Sure.
being numb, or rather they don't even open pages to their friends for that matter. So for such women, I feel it's so much of separation, so much of suicidal that they have already gone through
You're
it,
right. Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. And women have to feel secure. They have to feel safe. They need to know which direction they're going to. There is a level of peace and comfort that comes with that when, hey, I go to the doctor and say, do I feel safe with this person so I can explain what's going on? But again, there's not one particular remedy for these women, that are being victimized like this. But I encourage them at the same time, if you're going to the doctor, to go, let's just say you're going for your annual and you're going through something, doctors don't even have to ask you. You open up and speak to them during this time, because you never know what kind of direction they can guide you in as far as help is concerned.
That's so true. But this is something needs to be talked about. And I feel that there is little disconnection when these questions are being asked. I think we are not being educated with it, that, if they provide such information, the consequences of it, because that's the exact thing which is stopping them to be, open.
Right.
Or being secretive. And I think those are some of the good parts that you are actually doing through Color Me Safe. And would like to know how Color Me Safe brings the safe life to every human being. It is not just women, but a man, children, a family altogether. And would like to move on to that line.
Sure, absolutely. So Color Me Safe, we are a family crisis management consulting firm that specializes in providing guidance and solutions in child welfare issues. And one of why this focus, because we feel that there is a breakdown in family units. And when there is a breakdown, it affects the realm of child welfare. And child welfare is just not physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's the whole of a child. So when mom and dad break down, the child breaks down. So with this, we provide these services to address such concerns. And this could be in the area of child protective services. This could be in the area of mental health, parent-child conflict, where there's cultural barriers, victims of domestic violence, whether you're female or male. We address the entire diaspora. So regardless of gender, religion, anything.
Yeah, that's awesome to understand. So tell me one example of your work, that way our audience can relate to. Yeah, this is something that we probably needed, but we didn't know this kind of institutes exist, and what are their unique points to work with.
Absolutely. So I'll give you two different examples, as a matter of fact. So the first example is it's a simple case. However, it was made big. It was blown out of proportion. So we had a family that just recently came from India. This was a few years ago, as a matter of fact. A little first grader decided, she got in trouble at home, and she decided to go to school the next day and tell her teacher that her parents threatened to put her in the shed if she continues to misbehave. And I thought, oh, interesting. My grandmother and my grandfather threatened to do that to me when I was a kid too. I'm going to put you in the shed, keeping the door open and everything. So it was a discipline tactic, correct, for us back in India. However, the teacher frowned upon that. She was like, oh my God, they're locking this kid up in the shed. They didn't even know what the shed was. They thought the shed was where you keep your lawnmower and things like that. Well, shed in India means the garage. So what ended up happening is the teacher called Child Protective Services. CPS came out and spoke with the parents. They threatened to take the child away. So they got my information from another family here, and they called us and everything, and they explained the situation. So what really happened was this little girl was asked to go stand in the corner of the garage with the lights on, with the door open. It was basically a timeout. The school completely blew it up out of proportion. So we got involved, we talked to them, and we explained that there's a cultural disconnect here. Discipline practiced in India is frowned upon here. So initially they were threatening to remove this child because they thought she was in danger. We came in, we advocated for this family, and everything turned out to be fine. So this was an isolated incident.
Yeah, I mean, I can resonate with that. It can definitely happen because the way we grew up back then, the similar things inherently we carry so naturally. Actually, it's a very natural tendency for us to carry the similar things and have the similar wordings, but I know the cultural disconnect can make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And another recent case we had was a baby ended up being removed from the family's care due to an isolated incident, a 4-month-old baby. So what ended up happening is they took it to court. So the attorney on the CPS side, so mom and dad just recently came here, very traditional family, North Indian, Hindu, Punjabi family. And, as a married woman, you wear right here, right? Correct? So that attorney on the other side ended up accusing the father of domestic violence. Do you see what's on her head? That's red blood. And I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go. And, the judge asked a couple of questions and everything. And unfortunately, the case got reset. So their attorney and that client contacted me and say, hey, this is what's going on and everything. So we picked up literature and we consulted with a few, Hindu priests here and sent all that paperwork to the other attorney and said, hey, this is what that is. So the case ended up getting thrown out.
But these are some good examples, Gauthami. There are also some bad examples where also people needing that kind of a help. So would you like to elaborate those?
There are so many, wow, the dynamics of every family is so different, right? And there's so many cases that I can talk about. I mean, there are
maybe we can talk about the kids getting bullied at the school.
Sure.
There are kids that get bullied at the school and then they lose the self-esteem at a level that even they attempt a suicide.
Exactly. And going back to what I was saying earlier, when it comes to issues such as bullying and so many other social issues, we're not having these open dialogues at home. What happens if my child is being bullied? What action do we need to take? Or better yet, what happens if my child is the actual perpetrator of bullying? What do we need to do? So we have to look at it with both sides. We can't come up with the excuse, oh, this could never happen to my child, nor my child would never do this to somebody else. So I encourage these parents, let start talking about this information at a very young age. Don't wait till at the moment of crisis to address it, because we leave it, and then boom, something happens. And then we're like, oh my God, what do we do? Who do we talk to? Who do we speak to? No, have these open conversations so early in childhood. It's really important to do that.
But how one would know? As a parent, I always feel that we need to talk about a lot of things to our kids, but at what age, what and how we should be informing them. That education is lacking, Gauthami. So would you elaborate on that? Because you also give a good parental trainings.
And I think I would leave that up to the parents. I mean, they know their children the best, right? I think it's at their discretion what age. I think, if your parents, if they feel like their child they have a good understanding of the world, at least their surroundings and what happens at school, maybe from first or second grade, start having these conversations. And there's beautiful books if you want to talk with them and have these conversations by reading books, especially at that age. That's one way. Sitting at the dinner table, don't ask just straight out yes and no type of questions, but have open conversations. Maybe talk about a TV show where this happens and see what they think about this. And then based on that, advise properly. And I encourage parents, if a child in their home, if a child is being bullied, don't react, respond, observe, find out, collect the facts, go to the school, talk with the principal, talk with the teacher, talk with the counselor. But we don't want to become accusatory until we collect all this information. And that is so important to do. And life in general, right? We have, as human beings, our first thing to do is to react and not respond. So if we're calm and collected, I think we can collect the proper information. And again, if we react, it's only natural that we do. Any parent would do that because that's their child. They want to protect their child.
So coming back to that background, you interestingly listed the other case, if you think your child can get bullied, is always the victim side case where always be a soft corner. But there are parents whose child may bully someone else. Those are like stronger ones in their classes, by any means. So for them, their parents' duty is even tougher because some kids are strong. No matter what, they are born strong. They have those abilities to take the charge of the situations and all. They have that leadership skill in them. It's just that we need to turn it in the right way. But those parents, especially, I think they have a very demanding and a utter pressure job to do with those kids, isn't it?
No, you're absolutely correct. And we have to find ways to just, we got to put that ego aside and say, hey, there's an issue here that we have to address because it could easily escalate into something even more harmful, correct? And even with the perpetrator of bullying, there's help out there. We've seen it. We have seen, perpetrators of bullying do this and then take a complete 360. And actually be a voice for victims of bullying. So, again, it applies for being a victim of bullying and being a perpetrator of bullying. I think parents really need to understand the issue and identify, hey, my kid's got a problem here and we need to address it before it does escalate. I often say this, we go to these galas for nonprofit organizations that talk about, discuss certain issues or missions and things like that. So how do you bring education without awareness? If you're not aware of the issue, how do you educate other people and empower them? I think it's really important for us as adults. We really understand the root of the problem. We understand what it is. Then we can be that vehicle to carry that mission and talk about that issue to others so others have a better understanding of it.
That's so true. And sometimes it is late that even parents realize that their kids can do harm to others, and by then it is late. So this reminds me of a very good story that actually happened in Canada. And I would really like to bring it that because it can open a lot of parents to that level. As you say, that parents need to respond and not react. So there is one woman who had walked into one of the Art of Living ashram while there was this jihad come. And I think she was one of the follower of that spiritual group and, doing things. And she didn't realize the potential of her kid being so strong, being so leader, that he can threaten someone and he can actually do harm to someone. He had actually shot down someone in the school or somewhere, and then he was into the jail. And that woman walked up to the Guruji and said, he is my child, he is not even 18, and this incident happened. And the only thing that I'm looking forward is, why don't the spiritual organizations like yours and some others go to the jail, talk about this to the kids who have done harm, and then later on regretting in their life, show them the right path in a
Sure.
natural way, in a more loving way. And she cried, saying that I didn't know my child was up to this. As a family, we had always held the good values, but I don't know where it went wrong. I don't know where I fall short. And that guilt of that parent was so much. But looking at how she responded and how she accepted it was also a challenge. Often those parents are never been talked about. Often only the victim parents, their families, and
Right.
they get the soft corners. But I think all of them are in the same bucket. If you look at it as a parent, nobody wants their kids to do any bad to anyone. They always
Yeah.
hold these values, but something that just get disconnect.
Absolutely. And when it comes to your children, you want to protect them and you want to love them, but at the same time, we cannot coddle them, right? If
Mhm.
they do wrong, there has to be accountability. We've had situations where South Asian parents have called us and they said, "Hey, Gauthami, my child has been bullying somebody else, and I know that he needs help. Which direction can I go in?"
Mhm.
And yes, that takes a lot of courage for someone to come and say, "Hey, my child needs help," because they're the parents of the perpetrator, right? And like, as you said earlier, it's usually the victim we're focusing on. And I think as children, it doesn't matter whether you're the perpetrator or you are the victim, you need help one way or the other. How can we reverse this behavior?
Mhm.
Correct?
Yeah, so finding that and coming with that background, it takes a lot. And those are the special things I feel that the Gauthami brings into the table. And she has a lot to offer and cater for all type of situations. It could be a domestic violence, it could be child abuse, it could be something that you think that it can never happen in family. But with the surrounding we are into, with the communities that we are into, things can go wrong at any point of time. And especially children, I think they don't always have that right and wrong, the balancing sides to figure out. And with this, the new norms of being on the social media, having so much
Sure.
access to a lot of things at an early age, where they are not even at the age to figure out the difference between the two, sometimes fictional and non-fictional, what is real and what is not real. Having the body images in their mind for
Yeah.
themselves, especially the teenagers, lot of issues that can be talked out
Saying
to.
social media is a tool, right? It's a networking tool, it's an interaction tool. If it's used correctly, it could be useful for the greater good. But what we're seeing these last few years, it is taking a toll on our children, their mental ability, their emotional ability, their body, everything, your mind, body, spirit, it's taking a toll on. And I think it's really important. And I encourage parents, don't encourage your child to get on social media
Mhm.
until you feel like they are mature. Because what's happening with kids these days, their lives are being defined by the number of followers they have, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
By the number of likes they have, the loves they have, and whatnot. And they are internalizing it, and it's manifesting into many, many harmful ways, to the point where, yes, there are children that have committed suicide because of body image, because why can't I look like her? Why can't I look like him? Why don't I have, they have. Remember, we have to understand what's reality and what's not reality. And a lot of people, they post this and it's a facade. It's a
Mhm.
facade because, they post this perfect life, but we don't know what's happening behind closed doors. So
Mhm.
with social media, I encourage parents to proceed with caution. When it's a good time, you feel like it's okay for your children to interact on social media and have a social media account, because Social media is also a way where predators can get in touch with you. So there's that sexual exploitation, the trafficking takes place. Just because your settings are so private, it doesn't mean these people can't hack. In my opinion, I think sexual traffickers, predators are some of the most smartest people in this world, and they know how to get around any of this. And also, with parents who continuously post about their children and their lives, about their kids, be careful, because first of all, let's talk about consent. We as adults talk about consent, but when we post these pictures about our children, are we getting their permission? Because when they grow up, they're going to see all of this, because once it's out in the galaxy, it's there for life. So we need to be careful as adults what we put on social media, how much exposure we give kids, correct? Because other things can manifest. One person sees this, oh, look what they have, I'm going to go bully them the next day. Oh, look how good she looks, I'm going to go approach her the next day. So a lot of these things can manifest into so many different ways. So parents, we have to be cautious in what we put out in social media. We talk about our children being cautious, but you know what? They learn from us. So what we put out there, they're watching. And if mom and dad are doing it, then guess what? I can do it too.
That's so true.
Yes.
You just open up the right pages. I think that's so true. They learn from you. You are their first exposure to the world, and what you do is their norm.
Yes, exactly. And, this is very interesting. We're talking about this because we put out a blog article not too long ago about children and consent. It's on our website, actually. And it's becoming this show and this entertainment for people, little babies getting like a facial and massage and dressing up. First of all, why do you need to put that out with your baby? Are you trying to live your life through your children, and exposing them that much? What are you teaching the world, and what are you teaching to your child by doing this? It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful. I have a 8-year-old nephew and I have a 5-year-old niece. I have to get consent from my sister and my brother-in-law. If I want to post a picture, which happens like once a year with them, Radhika has to give me permission. She's like, Gauthami Akka, I don't want you to do it. Please don't put my children out there. And I understand where she's coming from. If we are talking about as adults as giving somebody permission, why can't we have the same respect for our children?
That's true.
Yeah. And yes, some of these videos are so cute watching them. It's adorable. I love watching these videos, but also we have to be very careful what we put out there and how much we put out there. We're creating this digital persona that sometimes it's not real. And sometimes it's there to give somebody else the upper hand, if you know what I mean. It can get creepy.
It can get
and unsafe.
Ways. Yeah, it can be both ways, like simple example to quote through. There are people in the celebrity world, the actresses, the models, and they have to go through this all the time, this duality of mindset, and sometime or the other they just can't live the real life at some point of time, because they have to make sure they're beating those bars, they're meeting those numbers, and they're maintaining the same hangers throughout their life. It's not true. And recently there was one of the model who came out, and she talked a lot about it. People have seen her throughout the childhood on the screen. When she was young, she was adult, and then later on she went through so much of depression, and then she came out strong recently. But it is so true, and that's what we are actually putting our children through when we are doing all this. At some point of time they may become different, they may look different, and adopting to that, taking that acceptance from themselves can be hard too.
It can have a very adverse and long-term effects, not just on children, but adults are seeing this too. There are so many adults out there watching these videos, following certain brands and influencers, as we say, and we take it to heart. Like, we question ourselves, why can't I be as pretty as her? Why can't I be fit as him? What are we doing to ourselves? We are wasting so much time on these social media sites. And how is that really benefiting us? in the long run? What are we learning from this? Okay, sure, we get a recipe here and there, but constantly having to put out content, constantly having to, talk about your day in life. I'm sorry, I personally cannot expose my entire life on social media. I think it's also healthy for parents, not, once in a while to ask, what's going on your social media account. And granted, more than likely, they're not going to tell you. What they're going to do is block you from looking at their Instagram or their Facebook or their TikToks or Snapchat. There's so many tools out there, but it's important for parents to follow up with their children. They need to know what's going on in their lives. And it's important to have these conversations so early. And you don't have to be so evasive about it. Just have simple, open conversations and know that they're going to be loved and accepted regardless of what the situation is. I think we get into this routine of talking at our children versus talking to our children. There's a big difference there.
That's true.
So,
I can see what you're actually saying. And, it's so important to get educated as a parent and come to that level of understanding that as a human being, children need their own respect. They need their own space. They need their own chairs.
They do. And we as adults, we are the ones responsible to guide them, to love them, regardless of what decisions we make. And sometimes we have to allow our children to fall. We can't keep coddling, though. The whole term tough love, that's how I was raised. That's how my sisters were raised. And I think it's really important. We can't hand everything to them. Otherwise, how do you evolve? How do you grow? How do you resolve and come to solutions when you have problems? Because you're with them until college, and then after that, after they're 17 or 18, they're kind of on their own, right?
Yeah.
So you do the best you can to rear them, and then you have to just let them fly.
I know.
And let them know.
That's really true, Gauthami. But this is something for the functional families, for a little bit well-to-do families who have enough to get their life going. But there are underprivileged families. There are single parents.
Sure.
They are resisting on their own fronts. First of all, the single parents who have gone through certain kind of abuse and now they have their children's responsibility. For them, it is a lot of tough times that they're already facing, and then, raising the children. That's another level of trauma and the situations to handle with peace. So what will you talk to them? Those parents are the most ones, I think they need more help.
And I think the vulnerable population, such as you described, that's where a lot of the help is. It's where all these nonprofits come into place. These nonprofit organizations, they raise money. Their mission is to help our vulnerable population. And we need to just do our little bit of research. We need to know that and understand there are resources out there. If one resource doesn't do something and they don't know, trust me, they will guide you to the correct place. So, when you say that this is only for well-to-do families, it's for everyone. It's the entire human diaspora. There's help for everybody at every different level. We just have to ask.
Awesome.
We just
and
have
if you
to
don't
ask.
know anything, I think Gauthami is the right resource. We have exposed to all of you. And really, it's not that her Color Me Safe, where she is both, like she's a social activist and has her own services running, but she also works for many nonprofits like Hope. She also works for many foster cares where they need food. And there are a lot of things, a lot of issues that she really handles from her heart. Not every time, somebody would have to think about whether can I afford those services. So such people do exist, and we are so humbled that this platform is bringing out such gems to all of you. And it's really her passion to come out and help the community. She has received many awards. She's being recognized as a strong woman to stand for her community, and all of it comes from her heart, and it reflects. If I go over her awards list where she's being recognized, it's a long list, trust me. But out of all the amount of projects that she handles, is also hats off to you, Gauthami, that the work that you're bringing together.
Thank you so much. I always say this, it's not only to be good humans, but I think it's really important to be good humanitarians. And I think if we lead with passion, compassion, and kindness and love, and this is a world I imagine every day where there's love, kindness, acceptance, tolerance, inclusion and diversity, we wouldn't be having these conversations. And that is a world that I imagine every day, every day.
That's true.
And sometimes we just have to change our outlook and then look out. And life gets busy. We're trying to put food on the table. We're working every day. We're trying to function, correct? And sometimes it gets hard, and I encourage parents, when your children want to talk to you, don't get on the phone and start texting. Look at them. Pay attention to what they're saying. Read between the lines and really listen. Don't listen to just listen. Really listen and respond. They know that mom and dad are really listening, that I can know that I can trust them. I know that I can go to them. I know that I can confide in them. And that is so important. We can't spend our lives on, our phone, right? I know everything these days you can do from your phone. It's so easy and it's so ready to go, but we have to stop and we have to put their needs first. And this is how they evolve. This is how they grow.
Yeah. Thank you for all that information, Gauthami. I'd like to still touch base on one more topic that you had kind of worked on. Maybe now with so much of work that is on your plate, you're not paying attention to all the lines, but there is something called as in the foster care also with the LGBTQ community, things are happening. And those are the children which are not privileged, like the children who stays with their family. So I would like to touch base on that work that you have done, or maybe you want to mention something that can help our viewers understand that what really it goes through. And there are people who are helping for such kind of kids, and also there are always welcoming hands. Maybe people like us can go out, even if we don't have education in the clinical psychology, even if we don't have education in understanding about the child psychology or anything, but we have an intention to help. So for them, what will you suggest?
I think, in regards to the LGBTQ plus, the diaspora and community, I think we as people, we need to stop and understand, and for parents, you've heard of this term called ally. And I'm happy to suggest, ways you can be an ally parent or just an advocate for the LGBTQI+ community. First of all, if your child comes out to you and says, hey, I am lesbian or I'm gay or whatnot, the first thing I encourage parents to do is let them know, they're loved. Say that I am here for you. Tell them, I love you and I will support you with no matter what. And that makes a huge difference. And also learn the facts, embrace, and whatever they tell you, don't dismiss it. It's important. We have this tendency, oh my God, we can't accept this. This is hard. Listen to them. Don't dismiss, anything they're saying. And the first thing that should come to your mind, this is not something that needs to be fixed. He is, she just is, let it be. This right here is the same. Nothing has changed. And celebrate your child for everything they are and for who they are and what they are and what they will be. There's nothing wrong with that. And also ensure that they form healthy relationships. And as a parent, that's your responsibility, is to make sure they form healthy relationships. And another suggestion that I can give is encourage dialogue. And I have this in front of me. It's like, when you feel something needs to be discussed, try being less direct. Okay. Bring up their friends or characters you encounter, while watching them on TV. It's like, if you see a situation on TV, say, hey, okay, this person likes, boys and girls. I'm okay with it. And that opens up dialogue with your children. And another thing is stay involved, push for more inclusive sex education in school. Don't hesitate to speak up and ask questions, and, maintain frequent contact with the school teachers or the school counselors. Try to understand, be their advocate for them, and try to understand, what they are going in school, and, stay connected to them. That is so important. Be available so that your child knows when he or she can come talk to you. And, you know, there's so many different resources out there, especially for the South Asian community. There's a wonderful organization called Desi Rainbow Parents and Alliance, such a wonderful group with wonderful resources.
Oh,
And they
we didn't
really
know that.
focus on this.
Hmm.
And it's daisyrainbow.org.
Okay.
And there's so many resources out there that can help and guide you. And that's what being an ally is about. So,
Yeah, many
yeah.
times that education we don't have, and it's important to
Mhm.
get there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, Gauthami, it's amazing to talk to you, and I know you have a lot to open, but how about we get into the rapid fire round now?
I'll do my best.
No, you always do the best. I've heard you being a speaker, you have been to so many conversational shows. I don't think you have an issue.
Oh, you're very sweet. You're very sweet. Thank you.
So I know you're a piano teacher. So
Yes.
what it means to you saying music, you know?
Oh, music is something I just absolutely adore. I can't leave Earth without music. If somebody's gonna bury me or cremate me, you better take my piano with me. I have been playing classical piano since I was the age of 6. You know, I come from a very musical family, specifically from my mom's side. They all play the veena, they sing Carnatic music, and you know, I took opera a few years ago for a few
Mhm.
years. So music is something that I just love, and I'm so happy that I can share this passion with young kids that I teach and adults as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
And, being into the services where you have to go through a lot of trauma, somebody is going through trauma, going through them, talking out, it takes a lot on your heart. So, what is your favorite mantra to relax?
To relax. Oh, there's quite a few mantras. You know, I listen to Hanuman Chalisa. I listen to the Mahitram. I chant that every day. If I don't chant it, I listen to it. You know, I chant the Gayatri mantra in the morning. So I do my meditation. I do my pujas. So, and that brings me a level of peace. You know, when I was working at Child Protective Services, I was a Bal Vihar teacher at Chinmay Mission for about almost 14 years. And
Yeah.
that really helped me. That was my peace. That was my therapy. That was my time for solitude, is being involved in teaching our Hindu culture to young kids. So,
Wow, that's good to know. And
yeah.
especially when I look at you as one of the children who has been raised here, went to the school and doing Hanuman Chalisa, even I don't know.
Yes, it's, you know, and I thank my mom and dad for all of this. So, and then,
Awesome.
you know, Swami Sarveshananda, he's my Guruji at Chinmay Mission. So without their guidance, you know, I wouldn't have this balance.
Oh,
So
awesome.
it's about practice, right? And
Uh-huh.
consistency. So
Yeah, but it's important to know that you have to be consistent in something. Unless you like that, unless you connect with it, you cannot be consistent.
exactly.
So now consider a situation. You have got a phone call from Michelle Obama's office, and she has invited you for a coffee with her. What will be your agenda to meet?
Heck yeah, absolutely, 100%. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting because Michelle Obama is one of my sheroes, and I had an opportunity to meet her in
Oh,
2018. Yes. So she was on her book tour of Becoming, and I spent a little money
of
and I
course.
got to be, and there was 30 people that actually got tickets to be part of the VIP, meaning that we got time with her 5 to 6 minutes.
Ooh,
Yeah. So I was the second person in line. She's just magnificent. Oh my God. When I entered that day, she had, like, you know, her Secret Service and everything. She just had this huge smile, gave me the biggest hug, and she was just so present. And
wow,
she
you're
just asked
lucky.
me a few questions, and she asked me, "You smell really good." And I had to give her something to remember me by. So I said, "Do you want to smell the rest of me?" Yes. I mean, it's what I heard that day. It will be a lifetime of inspiration that I will take with me and hold with me till the day I die. I was just so inspired of the woman she is. And till this day, she's still one of my sheroes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what if you get her secluded time saying that, you have a meeting. So what will be your agenda to discuss with her or, take something further?
Just open and honest conversation. That's all I would want. Open. What can we do to leave a better world for the future generation. What, like, and it would just be fun talk. And then I would love to know, what kind of TV shows she likes, because I love reruns. I will watch them all day long. So it would just be a lot of fun conversation, but with depth.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I follow her too, and the amount of work she does, and being so honest about everything. I think that takes a courage. She would just come up and say, "Oh, you know what? I absolutely don't like cooking." Although many women fall into the trap that they have to like cooking, and she come up strong there saying that, "No, that's not my job. My job is different, and I'm happy with the fact that I don't know few things."
Yeah. And I think as a woman, it's really important. Be authentic. Don't try to be, just be. And that's the advice that I have for, teenage girls that I mentor, or, colleagues. Don't try to be. Just be your authentic and real self, and own who you are as a person, because you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of.
So, what is the next word that comes to your mind when somebody says, "I am abused"?
Meaning that there's domestic violence. Well, first of
Whatever,
all, whatever
whatever.
it is, if someone were to come to me, I think number one, I want them to know that I am a safe place and a comfort zone for them, that whatever they tell me is strictly confidential. So you want to create that space first, and then you want to collect the information on, what's happening, if there's a pattern, et cetera, et cetera. And then you guide them to the next step. Okay, talk to them, see how open they are and willing to get help. And if so, then you direct them to the correct place. And if this is something that we can handle, and we will do, if not, then we will direct them to the correct resource.
Awesome. Now, I'd like to get the last question of a rapid fire. Your mantra is color me safe. You love all the colors in the world, but still, what is your favorite color?
My favorite color is purple.
Oh,
Yes.
mix of both.
Yes.
Mix of
Color is
both, blue
purple.
and pink. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you, Gauthami, for all your
Thank
help
you so
and
much.
being open so much. But we won't leave you without the advice question. You have been to the boat of, being a first Indian American to raise here and going to the school and getting the
Sure.
cultural shocks at every point of time. What is that your advice would be for teens who are, coming with that immigrant mindset and growing up here? Because they say
Sure.
different things in the home and different things in the school.
Yeah. And I'm just going to be very open here. As long as we're alive, each of us is going to face some form of adversity if we haven't already, correct? And honestly, this universe won't let us get away with it. We will absolutely face something one way or the other. And my first generation as a, first generation Indian American it's taught me so many lessons, some good and some bad. And I do know one thing, if it's bad, that inner strength in me, like we talked about earlier, has helped me face and overcome those challenges. And as a matter of fact, it's the path to resiliency, that strength. So, the advice that I have for young kids is own your identity and who you are as a person, own your experiences, because you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. Own your truth. If you believe in something, make some good noise. Don't just believe, become, and, be your authentic self, and never be afraid to be judged. And don't ever be a footnote. Write your own story, because your story does matter. And I leave you with that.
Yeah, your story does matter. And thank you for giving us that strong advice, because that's what matters. Everyone sees there are stories that are coming out of big people becoming big people and things like that. And they feel that their stories are short, their stories have fallen short to,
No.
list it to someone. But it is, if you look at how we grew up, it was, our family stories that fascinated us the most, because
Oh,
with them we
absolutely.
resonated, and that gave us the courage in the first footstep to go through and come to know your identity. So every story matters, and every story
Absolutely.
is different. We need to respect that.
100%. And, when you go out in the world, biggest thing is learn to practice humility, because you can be here, but when you're here, you can come straight down. So maintain that balance and maintain that humbleness and humility, because those are going to be your superpowers.
Yeah, thanks for giving us a superpower of being here, and wonderful, wonderful to have your time, and doing that job passionately, talking one story over and over with the same passion, with the same learnings, and taking to a different learning curve for someone who needed to hear. I think it's a lot of work. Not everybody is happy with it. For some, it becomes a monologue. But whenever you see Gauthami coming out, be it the International Women's Day discussions, be it somewhere where she's receiving awards, be it somewhere in a non-profit where she has to work, she is with the same passion. And having those passionate guests on our show makes us more privileged, more humble, and we look forward to learn from such people. I'm so happy that we have this platform to bring everyone together, and would like to know if you have someone such passionate, who is doing amazing work for the community, who is amazingly standing tall through all the situation that she has gone through. We love to know such guests, and would like to see
Absolutely.
how we can bring their stories here. If you like this
Absolutely.
show, don't forget to share and subscribe. And lot of love to Gauthami.
Thank you, Pranali, and thank you for having me. You're doing amazing work and bringing everyone's story to life. So hats off to you, and keep inspiring, empowering all the women globally doing what you do.
Thank you so much, Gauthami.
Thank you.
Wonderful
Take
to
care.
have you. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Are you ready to amplify your voice and grow your business or a personal brand? Imagine reaching thousands of listeners, sharing your passion and making an impact, all through your very own podcast. Join our upcoming workshop, Podcasting 101, designed just for you. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a seasoned professional, or just passionate about sharing your own story, we will equip you with all the tools that you need to start your podcasting journey. Don't miss out. Visit passionatepearls.com/workshops and do secure your spot today. That's passionatepearls.com/workshops. Let's make your voice heard. Hello, Passionate Pearls listeners. Pranali here. Are you a business owner looking to amplify your brand's reach? Or maybe you know an expert who deserves the mic? This is your moment. Advertise with us or recommend a fascinating guest for our podcast. Dial at 341-209-0102 and let's make your story roar. Passionate Pearls Podcast, where your tales ignite. Call us now at 341-209-0102. Let's champion the spirit of positive change together.